While in university, I tutored a shy young woman who believed she was unable to learn math. After she aced her exams at the end of the year, she began to wonder what else had she believed was impossible for her that might not be so. Time and again, I've helped clients get past specific performance barriers, and the side effect has been to lift the metaphorical blinders that limited what they believed was possible. Harvard psychologist William James was right on the mark way back in 1907 when he wrote, "The human individual lives far within his limits, possessing amounts of resources which only very exceptional individuals push to their extremes." Today, I'm going to show you how to break free from the social paradigms that hold most people back by leveraging 3 powerful levers: mindset, neurochemistry, and how our brains attribute meaning and shape our beliefs. Hello, I'm Adolfo Gómez Sánchez, and this is my Oxford Talk. Oxford is wonderful in so many ways, but my favorite part is the legendary Iffley Road Sports Centre, where on May 6, 1954, a young man named Roger Bannister achieved what was universally considered impossible at the time, breaking the barrier of the 4-minute mile. That was an amazing feat, but what is really fascinating is what happened after. In the 2 years following the race, 9 other runners completed a mile in under 4 minutes. Now, 2 years is not enough time for a generational change or a revolution in nutrition. So what happened? The main thing that occurred is that someone proved that it was, in fact, possible, and that shifted the limiting beliefs of all other runners around the world. For over 30 years, I've worked as a performance coach for professional athletes, CEOs, and other elite performers. During that time, I've discovered that one of the most powerful ways to positively impact the lives of others is to challenge what we've been programmed to accept as indisputable truth, enabling us to radically redefine what we believe is possible. Today, I want to take you on a journey to understand the invisible forces that forge our beliefs and condition our potential. We'll start by looking at how our focus affects our neurochemistry, setting off hormonal reactions that can either keep us trapped or fuel our progress. Then, we need to explore how our brains create meaning as a survival mechanism, programming our subconscious with beliefs that condition our emotions, our decisions, and our actions. With these foundations, we can then review and expand what we believe can be achieved, and more importantly, who we believe we can become. That last point is extremely important. We need to change our focus from achieving to becoming. And along the way, we'll discover the flaws in some of the most pervasive social beliefs that limit us as human beings. The most crippling of these paradigms is the axiom that failure carries with it shame and should be avoided at all costs. But I'll let you in on a secret. Everything you've been taught about failure is completely wrong. In fact, ensuring that you fail a minimum number of times each day is one of the most transformative practices you can adopt and has the power to enable us all to live happier, more fulfilled lives. Surprised? Well, fasten your seatbelts and let's jump down the rabbit hole. During the 19th century, the meaning attributed to failure shifted from an occurrence, for example, Roger failed to finish the race, to a character trait. And that meaning has since grown deeper and stronger roots in our culture. This belief that failing somehow makes us damaged goods activates the survival instinct in our limbic brain. We respond by hopping on the hamster wheel and chasing achievement, looking for tangible proof that we are in fact worthy of being accepted because we win those trophies, get that corner office, or accumulate material wealth. This quest leads us to mistake achievement for fulfillment. In other words, we're programmed to seek pleasure and believe that we're attaining happiness. Pleasure and happiness are not the same thing, especially at a neurochemical level. Let's break that down a little more. The drive to achieve is fueled by the neurotransmitter dopamine. Achievement is about winning and reward, and the pleasure you get is visceral and short-lived. Soon after you make that sale or win that championship, the effect starts to fade, and you need a new victory to reproduce the feeling. In fact, you need a bigger hit to get the same pleasure, because excess activation of your dopamine receptors leads to decreased sensitivity. Now, if this sounds like something you'd expect to hear in relation to substance abuse, that's because dopamine is the neurotransmitter of addiction, be that addiction to drugs, gambling, or to chasing social acceptance. But it gets worse. Your subconscious equates failing with a greater risk of being ostracized by your tribe. From an evolutionary point of view, this represents a threat to your very existence. So your body adds cortisol to the chemical cocktail. You may know cortisol as a stress hormone, but you probably don't know that it decreases cognitive control. As a result, you become less able to resist temptation to chase pleasure, thus reinforcing the dopamine cycle. By contrast, fulfillment is driven by the neurotransmitter serotonin and comes from becoming the best version of yourself and serving others. The most significant impact of this focus is that you begin to measure success in terms of internal growth, not external achievement. Because your goal is to be more, not to do more. By focusing on growth, you stop linking your identity and your worth to external recognition. And instead, you focus on how much of your authentic self you bring to your craft and how much of your latent genius you unleash. You see, it's not about how you rank versus others, but rather how close you come to realizing your own maximum potential. From this vantage point, failure ceases to be a source of shame and becomes a badge of honor that proves that you're doing the brave work of putting aside your ego and chasing mastery. It's impossible to overstate the positive impact we can have by redefining failure, not as something to be avoided, but rather something to be actively sought out, because it represents the necessary practice reps. Unleash your full potential. If you still cringe when you hear me suggest that you need to embrace failure, think of it this way. Would you expect to be a world-class ballet dancer after 3 months of practice? Or would you assume you'd be playing in Grand Slam finals just 1 year after picking up a tennis racket for the first time? Of course not. You'd intuitively know that you need thousands of hours of practice, laden with mistakes, imperfect execution, and corrective feedback to achieve those elite levels of skill. So, why then do we expect team members in the corporate world to be able to dominate new skills after receiving just a half-day training? Why do we expect entrepreneurs and product designers to successfully innovate from the very first try? And the one that bothers me the most, why do we seem alarmed when a child does not follow an arbitrary timeline for speaking, reading, throwing, or any other basic skill? Where is the volume of practice reps contemplated in any of these examples? It's not, and that's the big problem. We're enamored with a lie we call natural talent, believing that there are blessed individuals who can become experts at new skills almost overnight. Let's dispel that myth right now. Natural talent just measures how fast someone picks up a new skill. However, research by Dr. Anders Ericsson shows that in the long run, the volume and quality of training is orders of magnitude more relevant than talent when determining the skill level a given individual can ultimately achieve. In fact, Dr. Ericsson goes one step further, explaining that we now understand that training works to create abilities that did not exist before, not to unleash some dormant skills present since birth. That is why it's so powerful and transformative to reframe failure as practice reps. But now the million-dollar question remains. How do you change the meaning of something so deeply ingrained in our societal culture? Well, the first thing you need to understand is this. Nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. Take a second to fully process that because it's a game changer. Once you realize that nothing comes with a predetermined meaning, you can step into your power to give it whatever meaning you choose. Dr. Carol Dweck's work at Stanford indicates that people with a fixed mindset believe that skill or talent is determined by genetic endowment. As a result, they interpret failure as a confirmation that they simply lack the necessary raw material and are more likely to quit early on. By contrast, people with a growth mindset believe that skills, including intelligence, can be developed with the right mix of focused practice. In turn, they see failure as information of what they need to improve. Not surprisingly, they tend to be much more resilient than the fixed mindset group. Note that both groups can experience this exact same event, but come away with totally different outlooks and expectations of what's possible. Why don't more people use this power then? Mainly it's because they view the beliefs they have as immutable truth. However, it may surprise you to know that most of what we believe to be facts are actually just assumptions that our brains make to help us navigate the world. It's a pretty useful survival system, except when your brain jumps to conclusions that limit what you believe is possible. Elite performers understand this and use it to redefine failure in a way that empowers them. Remembering that the most predictive variable of world-class skill development in any field is the number of hours of focused, deliberate practice, they understand that the vast majority of those reps, especially during the first months, even years, are going to be far from perfect. In fact, if you're training at the necessary level to expand your skill, 20 to 40% will be failed reps. Top performers understand that failure is merely objective feedback related to your current skill level, and it's never a valuation of your worth. In all cases, the purpose of feedback is to help you learn, understand, and integrate knowledge so you can evolve from theoretical understanding to practical ability. The fundamental paradigm shift here is that failure, lots of failure, is absolutely necessary to master any skill, be it physical or cognitive. But now you know that those failed reps are absolute gold because, as Dr. Erickson explained, they represent the path to make possible things that were not possible for you before. I invite you all to step up as leaders and redefine failure as reps. Help us to create a world where no person of any age feels stuck in a dark cell of shame just because they need more time and practice to perform a given skill. Bravely lead the charge to teach children that they need to fail just as they need to eat their veggies to grow strong and resilient. Create an honor roll of epic failers where those who embrace the discomfort of feeling clumsy and imperfect in order to learn something new are celebrated. How different will the world be when we liberate millions of people from the stigma of failure by normalizing the mantra, I can't do it yet, but I will get there. I just need more practice reps.